Hello, welcome back to the Apologetics passive run on Bioshock. First of all, May the 4th be with you. Happy Star Wars Day. So we're going to try, I told the guys I want to try and get a Star Wars analogy in. We'll see how it goes. But I celebrated today by playing Force Unleashed and watching some Clone Wars. You know, you got to go back to the, not just the movies, you have to expand out a little bit.
Yeah, but Matt, Force Unleashed is no longer canon?
I know. I don't think it ever was canon, was it? Was it ever considered canon?
I don't think Lucas didn't really ever define or protect canon.
The first one was good because no matter what ending you took, it both ended with the regular canon.
You both ended dying. Oh no! I thought that if you chose the other way, then you replaced Vader.
I don't think so. I thought I remember that both ending.
I don't know, it's been way
I really do like it that they made Grand Admiral Thrawn canon because that was a cool.
Yes,
he was a cool character. Have you read the book, the new one?
No, not the new one.
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
I don't know. I just saw it.
Oh, okay.
I think I've heard it was really good.
I haven't read any of the new Star Wars because I spent all the time memorizing the old canon, and then it's gone, and I'm like, what a waste
Now
of my life.
it's Legends.
At least Disney is pulling in a lot of the popular things.
My favorite
and making
canon.
them fit.
My favorite canon was the Republic Commando, the clones.
I don't know that
I
one.
love those books.
Oh yeah, they have books on that. Yeah. Which some of that stuff is by periphery accepted. Just those books themselves aren't official.
All right, enough about Star Wars. Let's get going with some apologetics. Something we do have to seriously talk about, though, is like after this next movie, are we gonna should we still call ourselves Apologeti? Because, Luke is putting an end to the Jedi. I think they're going like straight gray Jedi.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna turn this into a quick little sanctified rabbit trail, as Dr. Habermas would say. So the theory now is that Luke's who's saying that the Jedi have to end, and so they're going to take a more central route, or like the gray Jedi. The gray Jedi they're not really, they haven't drunk the Jedi Kool-Aid, so they don't hold to all the everything that it entails, but they're a little bit more roguish. So that's what the thinking is that Jedi is going to be something like that. Because as it was set up now, with the rule of two, with the Sith, they would always result in there being this more powerful entity than the Jedi. I mean, look at what Darth Tyrannus was able to do, or Darth Sidious was able to do. He was able to take over pretty much the entire galaxy, simply from planning and deception and all these things. Now, he is so strong that he was able to do that while being directly around the Jedi. And now some people, they knock the Jedi for that. And they're like, well, if they can sense someone who's a little worried, why can't they tell that this guy who why can't they tell that there was this guy who manipulated the entire universe to follow him? And I was like, well, because he's that strong.
They're overconfident.
Yeah, they're overconfident, and he really was. I mean, think about who he fought in that last battle. Kit Fisto. Dude, that guy is so strong. He lasted 3 attacks against Darth Sidious. I mean, that's how strong he is. Now, granted, Mace Windu did beat him, but Mace Windu is also he flirts with the dark side. I mean, that's why he has a purple lightsaber. So the only people who were really able to beat Palpatine was a guy who was flirting with the dark side, Yoda, but in the end, Yoda pretty much lost because he had to run. So Yoda didn't beat him. Mace beat him, and that was only because he was flirting with the dark side. And then Vader beat him, and that was only because Vader was the dark side. So the only way that they could have they ever beat Sidious because he was so strong is when they were employing the dark side. So I think they're going to go the more neutral Jedi route to prevent such an arms buildup, so to speak, from the Sith. Because if there is nothing to oppose, and I'm not trying to say that just because there's nothing to oppose, but if there's nothing to oppose the Sith can't really rise to power. They only could rise to power in that situation because there was this antithesis of the Jedi. But then again, people will always seek power. They will always seek to rule weaker people. And so it's just very bad thinking to suppose that all we have to do is get rid of the quote unquote good side and then there won't be a bad side. I mean, that is worse. I mean,
well, what it seems that they're seeding is something actually even more than that. So Star Wars already has the kind of Eastern philosophy.
Yeah.
It's the Force.
yeah,
But what they're doing is then removing the one thing that made it a good story, which is
it had good and evil.
good and evil, absolute morality.
And again, though, look at Wikipedia. You know, on Wikipedia, what they call good and evil, it's only nominal. There's nothing inherently good about goodness, and there's nothing inherently evil about evilness. All they are is opposing forces. Now, if all they are is opposing forces, then why should someone align themselves to one or the other? Now,
right.
and
Disney's
again,
worked hard to seed that idea in people's mind even more recently.
Yep.
So that they're ready for the removal of any sort of
and
attempt.
And the thing, though, that's funny is because a world that has the greatest capacity for evil is not. I mean, we think of evil as because absolutes exist, and you say, you know, you're so dogmatic, you are so absolute in your thinking. It's because of your views on absolutism that evil exists. And I'm like, no. The greatest evil, actually, let's do this. Let's segue this into the question on objective morality. So why don't you read the question on objective morality, and then read the follow-up question, and then I'll put these together, so that way we're at least, you know, like somewhat
relevant.
Yeah, so we're not it seems relevant, but that way we're actually, you know, answering questions and proceeding.
So is morality objective or subjective? Is morality objective or subjective? I see this come up in a number of different threads, but I think it would be good to have an entire talk about in one thread. This is one area where I disagree with Sam Harris, since he thinks morality is objective, but it just does not come from God. But I believe morality is subjective, since it's always changing over time, and even depending on where you live in the world or what community you live in. If morality was objective, wouldn't everyone know and agree what is moral and what is not? Also, even if morality was objective, which it is not, great way to encourage discussion.
That's fine. We get the point of it. Okay, and so
well, they're saying even if it was objective, that would not mean that it comes from a god.
Yeah, it would. But so then, what was your question? What was the one you found?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh. Just say you.
Well, I just got done talking to Kyle, so.
Yeah. Why are spirituality and morality combined at all? It seems to me that the main problem with religion is that it dictates morality. Shouldn't we be able to explore our spirituality and debate theology while having a separate code of ethics for how we treat our fellow man? Our current system fosters so much on hate and
That's
ignorance.
fine. Okay, so our current system fosters on hate and ignorance. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's the last sentence.
Okay.
Way to open up.
So the issues here is now Sam Harris, how he doesn't think that morality is inherently objective. He says that they can make it objective by focusing on human well-being. And I've talked about this before. That was one of the first videos. Now, this seems like a good way to achieve objectivity, independent of a god. But like I said, though, when I explained at that time is, if you focus on human well-being, that will devolve into utilitarianism, and utilitarianism results in massive amounts of evil. I even read this one guy who was trying to hold to utilitarianism, and he wanted to hold to it so bad, but he knew that it was horrible, and so he said this: "I'm still a utilitarian, but the most utilitarian thing for me to do is to not advocate utilitarianism."
What is utilitarianism?
So basically what he said is like, I want to be a utilitarian, but I know it's horrible. So I'm going to still say that I'm a utilitarian. Why does it do that? I'm still going to say that I'm a utilitarian just because I want to be a utilitarian. However, I'm going to say that the best thing for me to do, the most benefit for the most amount of people, is to stay away from utilitarianism. It's absurd. So now, what?
What defines utilitarianism?
Utilitarianism is basically the notion of you do what is best, what profits the most amount of people. So like Spock, he sacrificed himself, and he says, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Now, in life and death situations, I agree. Utilitarianism is the way to go. That's what makes the plight of superheroes so intriguing, is because they have to make these decisions in an instant that can affect hundreds, thousands, even millions of people, depending on what tier they are. A street tier superhero maybe has to make a decision that affects one person. Superman has to make decisions that can affect millions of people. So superheroes do have to make utilitarian decisions, but you can't make that decision off of daily life. That just results in copious amounts of evil. So now the question of spirituality and objectivity and morality, yes, you cannot have objective morality without God. It is impossible. So in order for something to be objective, it needs to be independent of a subject. But in order for something like morality to be independent of a subject, that would mean that it couldn't come from a subject. Because if it came from a subject, it would be subjective, hence the name. So by definition, it is impossible to have objective morality apart from an objective being. So can you have objective morality apart from God? Not logically, but people do it. So Alistair McIntyre, great book, Virtue Ethics. It's brilliant. So what he does in this book is he takes aspects. Oh, I need to get there because I need to get the TK. He takes aspects of Aristotelian ethics, and he applies them to the modern day dilemma that we see in ethics. And it's brilliant. But the problem is, and Aristotle and Plato both knew this, is the only way for objective morality or for morality to exist is if it progresses towards some end, or you have to have it have its foundation in something that is eternal. They both knew that. Francis Schaeffer talks about this in his book. I don't remember what it is, but he talks about this.
Sounds like a good book.
Yeah. He talks about this, and he says that even Plato knew that his gods, his notion of the pagan gods, they were not big enough for him to ground his notions. He said he knew that. In fact, what is it? Rist, I forget the dude's first name. Might be a woman, but Rist, Real Ethics. He talks about that that Plato, or Plato's character Socrates, is in a debate with this guy named Transamachien, and Plato gets so frustrated, or Socrates gets, they're basically the same person. So if I say, I'll use those terms interchangeably. But Plato is so frustrated because Transamachien was trying to hold to a nominal view of morality. And he was basically saying that we can have objective morality, but we can't really ground it somewhere, so we're just going to nominally say it is grounded. And then by saying it is grounded, we are grounded. That's essentially what every current ethical issue does, or what every ethical scenario or ethical system does that denies the existence of God. They basically say, we need to ground this. How do we ground it? We don't know, so we're just going to say it needs to be grounded. And Plato is like, no, you cannot do that. He reduced himself to ad hominem attacks, or Socrates, the most brilliant guy, who has one of the most brilliant guys who've ever lived, was so frustrated because he says, no, you cannot have nominal morality if you have nominal morality, then you don't have morality. It needs to be objective. It needs to be something independent. If it's not something independent, then it's not objective and it doesn't really matter. So what is the purpose or the function / why do we have to have objective morality? Well, if you don't have objective morality, you don't have morality at all. So for example, we might just spend all the time on this question. What's our time at right now?
Right now we're at 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah, we're just going to spend our time on this one.
I can segue it into another one if you need to.
Well, let me just say this.
16 minutes.
Let me say this, and we'll leave it at this, and let's move on, because I do want to get to those other questions. Luckily, most of the other questions I think are going to be relatively short. But
Relatively short?
Relatively. For me, I always have to predicate it with relatively. So, what are our options? You have relativism, which is not the same as in the moral philosophy. In moral philosophy, relativism, or let's start with subjectivism. Subjectivism is the idea that morality comes from a person. But if morality comes from a person, then one person can't tell another person that what they're doing is wrong. So then we can default back and say, all right, let's move to relativism. And relativism is the idea that morality resides in a society. But if morality resides in a society, then one society can't tell another society that what they are doing is wrong. So we couldn't say that the genocide of Hitler was wrong because a society tells you what is moral. So technically, and what was that? Was it Richard F. Moore? In his he wrote in this essay. It was called. What was it called? It was an issue on homosexuality, and he was arguing that there's two types of morality. He said there's descriptive and prescriptive. And descriptive is basically just the way that morality is. It's just saying this is what these people believe. That's descriptive morality. And he says, obviously, just saying that you believe something is not enough to have an ethical system. And so he says you need prescriptive morality. And prescriptive morality says that this is what you should be doing. You should live this way. Oh yes. Now the problem with that notion is, how can you have prescriptive morality without a prescriber? Now, so obviously then he would say, well, yes, you do need a prescriber, but if the prescriber is from another person, then how is that a true prescription? If the prescriber is from a society, how is that a true prescription? The only way that you can have a true moral prescription is if there existed some entity or person that is independent from the human experience. This is why Kant said that you have to make all of your moral decisions a priori, because if you put your own experiences involved in making moral decisions, then then what happens is you're going to be biased. So the only way that you can have it is this independent, objective prescriber. And so Kant did a pretty good job of saying, yeah, we need to have that. And that's where he came up with this idea called the archangel view. Archangel, it's basically, the archangel is this idea of this independent viewer that can look at what you're doing and say, yes, what you're doing is good or bad. But again, who on earth could fit that role of archangel? We are all biased, we are all subjective, we all make decisions. Even if someone forms like some tribunal, I mean, look right now, like the kangaroo courts they have on college campuses. We're trying to determine, if someone is guilty of a crime or not. Do you think those people who are untrained in rhetoric and philosophy and who don't really know to prevent against presupposition, that they're going to be putting themselves in the right position where they're going to not make any sort of subjective and biased approach. It's like, no, it's impossible. I have to constantly catch myself from making too many choices or arguments based off my desires. So I'll just basically say that by definition, objective morality can only exist if there is an objective moral lawgiver. The only way there could be an objective moral lawgiver is if there was the Judeo-Christian notion of God. So we'll leave it at that. Next one.
Hitler is in heaven.
Oh, jeez.
The Jews he killed are in hell. Hitler was a terrible, terrible Christian. But he was still that, a Christian. He accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, and as a result, all his sins were forgiven, as no sin is too great for the blood of Christ.
Amen. I agree with that part. All right, that's fine. We'll keep it there. Okay, so first of all, a couple things I want to say. Well, first of all, they're going to point out that I'm using the no true Scotsman informal fallacy. Every single time you say, well, he wasn't a Christian, they're like, oh, that's the no true Scotsman informal fallacy. So what the no true Scotsman informal fallacy is where you see somebody who's a part of your people group, religion, or whatever, and they're doing something abhorrent. And then you say, well, you say, let's say we're in Scotland, no true Scotsman. And you see this Scotsman who, I don't know, is like beating on innocent children. And he says, that is no true Scotsman. True Scotsmen protect children. Now, in that sense, that is the no true Scotsman fallacy. However, we also are dealing with proper definitions in this instance. So in this case, for example, what if somebody said, oh, hey, I'm a vegan, and I think it's the most important thing for me, Vegans for Change, that's the group that I run, but I have shrimp wrapped bacon every day for lunch.
Shrimp wrapped bacon.
That's Ron Swanson's second favorite food, wrapped around his third favorite food. So anyways.
Bacon wrapped shrimp?
Yeah.
You said shrimp wrapped bacon.
Oh, so that's what I meant.
Which,
rolling.
I guess
that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That would be pretty neat. So anyways, now, would it be the no true Scotsman fallacy if they said that person is not really vegan? No, because a vegan by definition does not eat meat or meat products or dairy-based products. So if someone claimed to be a vegan and was not acting veganly, then we would say, no, they are not a vegan. And we know that because of the basic definition. Secondly, I want to put out, if these quote-unquote skeptics were as critical about the people that called themselves Christians as the people that called themselves scientists, we would not have this issue at all. It's like if someone calls themselves a scientist, they look at that guy's life and they look at what he's done, and even if they does have scientific acolytes, if they deny like an aspect of Darwinian evolution, or if they deny an aspect of climate change, they'll still say this person is not a scientist. But if someone claims to be a Christian, look at him with the same type of scrutiny as you do when someone claims to be a scientist. And you'll find that, just calling yourself a Christian probably is not enough to be a Christian. Now, if you do think that calling yourself a Christian is enough to be a Christian, look at Hillary Clinton. Now, what about Hillary Clinton's life seems Christianly to you? I mean, I usually can find a couple nice things about somebody, and there's so little I can find about her that I think is appealing. How do I get out of here? I am so lost.
It's like an endless maze.
I know.
Oh, the Big Daddy's upset.
Did they give any reason why they say all the Jews?
Well, I'll get into that. We'll just say because they're not Christians.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So again, so I've been working on my memory verses, and I've been going through Romans, and I was thinking about this question when I heard it earlier, and this is the first thing I thought about was this part I've been memorizing from Romans chapter 2, and it says, but according to your hardness and impenitent heart, you're treasuring up for yourself wrath in the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render each one according to his deeds. Eternal life to those who by patient continuance in doing good, seek glory, honor, and immortality. Okay, so now does Hitler or Hillary Clinton look like a person who, by patient continuance in doing good, seeks glory in God, honor, being a person of honor, and immortality. And I do gotta explain what the notion of immortality is, because usually, people think it's like, well, wait, seeking immortality, Frieza did that, and look how many countless things were destroyed by him. So, Matt, you
Easily
knew.
defeated by troops.
Yeah, he was. So yeah, again, he was. I will make this whole planet suffer. So he was always trying to be immortal, always trying to live beyond his age and means and whatever. But immortality in this sense is having a heaven-like mindset, or having the notion of you are a finite being and you have a limited amount of time on this plane, in this planet, in this existence to serve and love God. Because of that, have the immortality mindset, or the mindset of you are a sojourner on a foreign land and you are trying to move towards this end. So that's what it says for immortality. But what about those things? Does it seem like Hitler, does he seek honor, glory, and immortality? Does he seek the good? And he says, but what does it say after that? Seek glory. But to those of you who are self-seeking and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation, and wrath, tribulation and anguish on the soul of every human who works what is evil, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile. Now, does Hitler seem like a person who is obeying the truth? The truth is the central tenet of Christianity, which makes somebody a Christian, which is, I love the Lord with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, and I love my neighbor as myself. Okay, is Hitler obeying that truth? Or is he obeying unrighteousness, indignation, and wrath? I think he is obeying unrighteousness, indignation, and wrath. Third, even if somebody claims and says, I am a Christian, that is still not enough for them to be a Christian. Paul, just right later in that section, he says, but not the hearers of the word of the law are just in the sight of God, but the doers of the law will be justified. James says the same thing. He says, but do not be hearers of the word, deceiving yourself. For any of you is a hearer of the word and not a doer. He's like a man observing his natural face in the mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and then immediately forgets what kind of man he is. But he who stares into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer of the word, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in all he does. I skipped a point earlier. It says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only. Yeah, oh, I did say that one. So right away, Paul, James, they just says, it doesn't matter if you say you are this thing. It's not even hearing it. It's not even agreeing with it. It's not even you saying it's good. It is you working it out. Now, salvation does not come about through good works. Good works come about through salvation. So if you want to know if someone is a Christian, look at their life. If their life is one of love and peace and glory and honor and doing good works, and they claim to be a Christian, they're likely a Christian. But you have to have both. You do have to have both the claim to be a Christian and the good works that follow from that. But people can claim to be a Christian and not be a Christian. In fact, Jesus talks about that. He says, many will say to me in that day, he's talking about the day of judgment, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not cast out demons in your name? And I will say to them, depart from me, for I never knew you, you who practiced lawlessness. So that's crazy. I mean, there's people who like doing some crazy miracle works for God, but they've never denied themselves. They never took up their cross daily and followed him. They just kind of did their own thing, and they used Jesus' name. And even in using Jesus' name, they were able to prophesy. They were able to cast out demons. But Jesus said, hey, that's not enough. You practiced lawlessness. The only way that you can truly be a Christian is not only by denying yourself daily, taking your cross and following me, trusting in me, Jesus Christ, alone for salvation, but also having the works that show that, the external works that show that internal change. So I think that answers it pretty good, right? So again, though, do I think Hitler is in heaven? No, because there's nothing about his life that showed that he had a true saving faith. Now, are all the Jews in hell? Not necessarily. There are such things as messianic Jews who realize that Jesus is indeed the Messiah and the Savior of mankind, and those who trusted him. Dude, I'm not moving on until we get out of here. Like, seriously, where do we go?
Yeah, I was about to say, you're really lost.
Oh wait, this is it. All that was pretty easy. Okay, there. Now we're here. That was horrible. I was in there forever. Okay, let's move on. Let's do the passivity one.
Okay. Christians, show me in the New Testament your justification for self-defense, since Jesus taught unequivocal pacifism. It is clear Jesus taught pacifism to his disciples. He replaced eye for an eye with turn the other cheek. He said, "No, do not resist evil. If someone takes your shirt, give him your jacket." He said, "If someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles." He said,
All right, we get the point of it. Okay.
In the book of Acts, it shows Stephen and Paul both being attacked, and neither one of them resisted in any way. The only example of Christians trying to use violence is a story where Peter is rebuked for it. I'm not going to go through the whole story.
That's fine.
What about the temple and flipping the table?
Oh, that's a good point. I wasn't even going to mention that one. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say for this.
Wait, edit. Please note that the temple cleansing does not justify violence by Christians or self-defense in any way.
Okay, so...
And then they give reasons.
Well, it does, because what does it say? He flips over a table, he takes rope and whips people. Is whipping somebody an action of a pacifist? I mean, unless the definition changed. So right away I would say, yeah, Jesus himself was not a pacifist, but we do need to turn the other cheek. So what's the difference between how can you not be a pacifist and still turn the other cheek? Well, it's like this. You know, if there was some like 4'8" skinny kid who tries to step up to me and wants to fight me, it would be kind of difficult to turn the other cheek in that situation, because the dude is obviously, you know, I could probably one-shot him. Now let's say if you know, Evander Holyfield.
I just one-shot this noob.
So now let's say if like Evander Holyfield or some other professional boxer steps to me, it's going to be really easy in that situation for me to, you know, turn the other cheek and be like, "Go with God, my brother. I do not wish to."
Colin McGregor comes up to you.
Yeah. Colin McGregor comes up to me. I'm going to be like, you know, I have been told to turn the other cheek, and so it's like, yeah, in those situations, it's
I'm
really.
I'm going to be the bigger man.
I'm going to be the bigger man here, and I'm going to turn the cheek. So go with God, my brother. Oh, come off. So yeah, in that situation, it's easy to do. When we need to turn the other cheek is in situations without imminent danger, where you can show somebody grace and love and respect by not stooping to their level. That's, you know, that is showing somebody grace. You're showing somebody unmerited favor. If there's some noob that I could bust him in one shot, but I turn the other cheek, that's showing favor. Now, if that same noob, say, comes up and I'm with my family and he threatens them, and I think that he legitimately could hurt them, I would take him out. But only if there was a legitimate feeling of, if there was a legitimate fear of danger. Not like if I thought we could run and get away, I would run and get away. So what is my reason for saying this? Well, Jesus. Okay, and I do want to go into why Jesus didn't protect, or why Jesus rebuked Peter. Well, the reason why Jesus rebuked Peter was because here Jesus has been saying for years, I need to die. I'm the Lamb of God. I need to die and be raised again, so that man can have peace with God. And then when that's going to happen, Peter's like, I'll protect you. It's like, you idiot. This has to happen. And Jesus even said itself, he says, if it was an issue of protecting myself, I could have had a legion of angels here in 1 second and could have totally protected me. But I need to die. I was born to die. Why do you think I was given burial gifts at my quote-unquote nativity scene? Because they knew that the Messiah had to die. Or not necessarily the Messiah, but they knew that the prophecy was about someone who was going to die.
Who's the one that told Peter to get that sword?
What?
Who's the one that told Peter to get that sword?
What do you mean?
The sword that he had.
Oh yeah,
before
that's
that.
what I'm getting, and that's the point I'm getting to is Jesus actually said. Now he's like, I'll paraphrase it. He says, "Listen, I'm with you now, so I can protect you, but I'm going, and when I leave, you need to get a sword." And he said, in fact, if you don't have a sword, and you have something to sell that thing so you can buy a sword. And so that's how important it is Jesus says, even if you have to go out, sell something to buy a sword, buy it. Now again, what does the scripture say? It says, those who live by the sword, die by the sword. But using a sword to protect yourself is not an issue of living by the sword and dying by a sword. An issue of living by the sword and dying by the sword is someone who their whole life is revolved around being a person who is a fighter. Jesus is saying, don't be a person who makes your whole life about being a fighter, but you do use a sword in self-defense. Now, some people have said, oh, the sword is ceremonial. I remember this guy said that, and I was like, okay, well, what's the ceremony? And he just kind of looked at me like, what do you mean? I was like, well, something can't be ceremonial if there isn't a ceremony. So what is the ceremony? If you can't say that this is what the ceremony is, then it can't be ceremonial. And I know of no ceremony in scriptures that we're given as like this. That I'm just gonna auto hack it. There's no ceremony in scripture that says, well, yes, we must bring a sword. It's like, no, there's no ceremony. So if there's no ceremony, it can't be ceremonial.
Bring the ceremonial sword.
Bring the ceremonial sword. And yeah, I was good. Okay.
To our peace fest.
What about the other examples about them being taken in Kyle read?
So again, though, I would say in those situations, now these are guys who experienced grace to an obscene level. You know, they were with the living Christ. And because they had experienced grace to this degree, I think that just kind of resulted in them not wanting to inflict any sort of harm on another human. And we could see that. I mean, even the first century Christians, they put an end to the gladiator games because they're like, this is horrible, this is barbaric, and they didn't like violence, and also they were known for, people would throw out their unwanted babies, and Christians were known for going around and adopting them. So the first century church was just, because they had experienced this great love of Christ, they had this obscene amount of grace that resulted in them being taken advantage of. It resulted in them being, slaughtered without defending themselves, even though Jesus said to defend themselves. So I would say in those situations, they were wrong to not defend themselves. Now, again, I'm not going to say that they were wrong to. I'm not going to say that Peter should have done something more. He should have killed a guy or anything. I'm just saying though, the words of his rabbi said, defend yourself. And if the rabbi says defend yourself, you probably should defend yourself. All right. What's the time at?
Right now we are at 38 minutes.
Okay. Let's try and do a couple more.
Well, first, one more thing I want to address with that. Did Jesus replace eye for an eye with turn
Oh,
the other cheek?
that's a good point. I did want to bring that one up.
I figured you might.
Sorry, do you want to answer it? Because you brought it up.
That was kind of your thing.
Okay, so where do I want to go? I don't want to go to the winery. I don't want to go to the apiary.
What are you trying to do at the current moment?
I'm just trying to get I need 5 more things of chlorophyll solution. Oh, wait, those are in the apiary, aren't they? No, those are the bee things.
Not the bees!
Bees!
They're in my eyes.
Not the bees! Oh, it's so bad. I see a group of teleporting splicers. Syria have stolen Langlore's solution. Find the chlorophyll by discovering their hideouts in the rolling hills and looting their corpses. Oh, Matt. So we have to look at corpses, that's why.
Yep.
Where's Rolling Hills?
Was that?
That's way back at the beginning. How do we get back there? I'm gonna say, all right, we'll just figure this out. It helps to read, or pay attention. Me, I just, I'm like, let's do this.
Readings for chumps.
Readings for chumps. But then you always go back and read and be like, what was the instructions again?
Can we
I
have
was
shirts that say something about obscene grace?
Obscene grace.
I just
like
want to
that.
say that now.
And so we have obscene grace, Hitler math. What was that?
Math Hitler.
Math Hitler.
Watch out for Math Hitler.
Watch out for Math Hitler, and don't go in the tiger room.
Don't go in the tiger room.
Those are some pretty three good catchphrases. Okay, so yeah, the turn the other cheek thing. Okay, I mean, have you ever worked at a camp before? I mean, it's like girls always do this thing where they're like, oh, it'll be fun, let's prank the guys, and so they prank the guys, and then it starts with them.
Going with this story.
It starts with them, like toilet papering their car, and so the guys respond with killing their dog. You know what I'm saying? So wait, do I have to kill these guys?
That escalated
No.
quickly.
Because it says we have to loot their corpses. How do you loot a live corpse?
But they might.
Oh, you might have
It
to.
might have like hidden corpses, like that one room.
Well, read it. Whoa, that was creepy.
No, we don't.
That actually happened to me once. I can't.
So
Well, someone's
anyway,
eyes
so the
went
idea
red.
of tooth for eye for an eye or tooth for a tooth.
Someone killed someone.
What he was saying there is show people grace. He's saying that if somebody does something to you that is hurtful or harmful, you don't have to get the requirement of what the law deserves. You don't have to take your pound of flesh. And that was the whole idea of what Jesus was doing. That's this whole thing was there saying, hey, I could take a pound of flesh from humanity because humanity continues to sin against me. So he says, I could get it. But I'm saying, don't. You don't always have to get your pound of flesh. And so that's what that's what Jesus was saying. I'm just going to kill one guy. Whoops. I didn't want to use that one. So Jesus was saying is you don't have to always be looking for your revenge. That is not a good way to live. But the idea of the eye for an eye is not a moral theory. It's about limiting repercussions. It's about limiting responses.
So he did get rid of that.
No, he didn't.
No.
No, he's saying resist that temptation. I've seen because people have shown me grace in situations where they should not have shown me grace. They showed me grace. His body went flying.
Yeah.
So in those situations where
Yeah.
someone showed me grace where they didn't have to, in that scenario, they could have easily not given me grace and would have been totally justified in letting me deal with the repercussions of my actions. But they didn't because they wanted to be an example of grace. So as much as we can, we need to be an example of grace. I mean, and look at Jesus. I mean, look at the woman he caught in adultery. Everyone likes to point this out as the woman caught in adultery is Jesus like, oh, look, Jesus never judged this woman. I was like, yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
What did he say to her afterwards? He says, go and sin no more. Now, what would happen if, Jesus left and then she's like, that Jesus guy is not all he cracked up to be, and I'm just going to go and do what I want. I want to keep, whoring it up and, having adulterous affairs or whatever.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's a whoring it up. Now,
Keep whoring it
what
up.
would happen in the day of judgment when she stands before Jesus? Well, he showed her grace at that moment, but if she's going to disregard his advice, he will judge her. He will, in a sense, get his, I don't like the terminology, but his pound of flesh, because she chose to continue on in the lifestyle of sin, and the lifestyle of sin has consequences. So let's go. Ask the next question. Let's just keep going. I'm going to make this one a long one, because I want to progress a little bit more.
Just letting you know we're at 45 minutes.
That's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, we only have one question left anyway.
Oh, we do?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I got more here if you need it.
No, it's good. We'll do one more.
If God wants us to love one another, why would he intentionally sow division among us by making us all speak different languages? According to the story, humanity was directly disobeying God's command to spread out and inhabit the whole earth. Instead of obeying God, they sought to replace God, building a tower. They thought they could access heaven as punishment, and to disperse them as he had intended. God confused their language. Why? He's answering his own question.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll leave it at that.
This division
So,
is a punishment.
I'm glad we can do this question because it's pretty short. So there's nothing really inherently either good or evil about unity. Unity in itself is amoral. It's all about what you do with the unity. You know, I shared this example to you guys before, and I remember I was working at this church, and I just started, and I was like, all right, I don't want to come in and be like, hey, let's do this or let's do that. So I just really wanted to watch. And so like for 6 months, I just watched. And I noticed when we have youth group that for small groups, if we would have small groups for like 45 minutes, and for 40 of those minutes, they were doing icebreakers. And I was like, okay, don't want to judge, whatever. But it's like,
Man, they must have some permafrost.
yeah. We need somehow we need to, I don't know, move on to where we're, you know, talking about the scriptures or talking about Jesus. So anyways, after a while, finally they're like, all right, we're going through the plan, and like, now we'll do these icebreakers. And I was like, let's just skip the icebreakers. And the guy says to me, well, we want our kids to be unified. And I was like, great, then we have a unified group of kids in hell. You know, being unified isn't enough to make something good. Only being unified in the good is what makes something good. I mean, what did Paul say? He says, I plead with you, brethren, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you all speak the same things and that there be no divisions among you. Okay, so Paul said, no divisions among you. But he was constantly correcting their theology. He did it all the time. So how could he say in one breath that you be unified and that there is no divisions among you, and then in the next breath, he says, what you're doing here is wrong. What you're believing here is wrong. This is a heresy. I mean, why didn't he even have the thanksgiving in his letter to the Galatians? Because he was so angry at them because they were following another gospel. Now, were they united in following another gospel? Yes, that's why he was mad at the whole church. But so the idea of just being united, oh, we're stuck back here again. Back to the wine cellar. But just being united is...
That's bad.
Just being united is not enough for something to be good. You have to be united towards the good, you have to be united in the good, moving towards that good. So we should look, there are some splicers down here, right?
I think there were.
Yeah. So
Which splicer? You needed, which splicers specifically?
Houdini splicers.
Okay.
So let's find one, kill one.
Oh yeah, there was definitely Houdini splicers.
Yeah, there was a ton of them. So it's just being united is not good. Now, were the people united? Yes, but were they united in what is good? No. I mean, you could say you could say like I don't want to go back to like Hitler again, but you know, you could say the German people were very united in their stance of, to a degree. I mean, I know that there was dissenters and stuff, but they were very united. I mean, look what they did when they came together, and look at what they were able to do. They were very united, and they accomplished a lot. But being united is not enough for something to be good. Oh yeah.
You made a friend.
Oops.
Your friend doesn't like you.
He does not like me. So yeah. Does that answer that question? So yeah, it's just being united. It's like a computer. A computer is amoral. But what you do with a computer can be moral or not. You know, you could use it to give encouragement, or you could use it to launch a bomb from a drone and kill people. But the computer itself.
How dare you criticize Obama?
Fun fact: he was the only Nobel Peace winner ever to bomb another Nobel Peace winner. He bombed Doctors Without Borders. Yay for tolerance. All right, I want to get going. Let's ask another question. 'Cause I want to move on. I want to progress.
We gotta go searching.
I got.
What do you got?
This one might take a while.
Yeah,
I don't
then
know if
skip
I'll
it.
save
I have an old one saved.
This one says, "How can you believe in an all-knowing God and still think in your heart that you have free will?"
Oh.
You know-
Why is that just the internet sticking point?
I don't know. And the thing is, though, you only have the possibility of having free will if God exists. That's the only possible way for you to have free will. Because if we are purely physical, then we are simply a process that is independent. We are simply a physical, natural process that is independent of any of our willings. And even Stephen Hawkins admitted this, and he said that if physicalism is true, then we have essentially, it's impossible for free will to exist. But then he copped out of it by saying, but since we never really know what our biology will make us determined, we in a sense have free will. So it's like saying I'm a utilitarian, but I'm not going to hold to utilitarianism. It's the exact same argument. Now, if God exists and humans have souls, and there exists an independent, immaterial thinking center of a person, i.e. the soul, then only in that would one have the capacity, even the possibility of having free will. And as we said before, does God having knowledge of future contingents entail that we don't have free will? No, the tiger room example proved that's not true, that doesn't follow.
I got a weird one. Why do most religions consider a female doing one act of prostitution universally bad, universally worse than a girl having multiple sex partners?
What?
Why do most religions...
No, I got it. That's a stupid question.
Yeah, that's what I figured was weird.
No, I'm not gonna, that one's
Okay.
dumb. Well, I mean, so the whole idea here is what they're saying is, so it depends on what the intent. If you have a girl who is, I'm not gonna go into that. That's just dumb. Should we just end it?
I've never... Yeah, that's weird. I was shocked out.
I think at this point, I mean, we're just
We're
kind
at
of like
52 minutes.
we're searching.
yeah.
We're
Yeah.
searching, man.
All right, I might play this a little bit on my own, just to figure out where I'm supposed to go.
Not running around in circles.
Yeah, because I don't want to play this game and not ever progress. So maybe I'll play a little bit on my own. Maybe just get the chloroform or whatever. So, all right, this is Corvus with Apologetics, continuing our passive run on Bioshock, which really is just me running in circles looking for chloroform. But maybe we might have to augment this. This is going to take so long. But anyways, so hope you guys doing well. Keep fighting the good fight. Keep defending the faith. It's passed down once and for all to the saints. God bless you guys. And, yeah, let's rock it out. Oh, man.